Hey everyone, Jessica Chobot here, and welcome to IGN's Xbox 360 Holiday Buyer's Guide for 2007. Now, a lot of great games have hit the store shelves this year for the 360, and we have the man in the studio to tell us all about it, to help us whittle down our wish lists, IGN's very own editor-in-chief of Xbox 360 channel, Hillary Goldstein.
Thanks, Jess. You know, if they could press you into a disc, you'd be top on my wish list.
Hot, I think. I think that's a compliment. Moving on, so like I said, a lot of great games have hit the store shelves. A lot of them, though, have been shooters, with a few notable exceptions that we'll probably get to later on in the show. Don't you feel that it's just been primarily run and gun?
Yeah, I mean, Xbox is known for being shooters. It's a console that's, you know, hand in hand with Halo, which is the biggest shooter around. And yeah, Call of Duty 4, Halo 3, a lot of shooters this year. And in fact, the biggest and best RPG of the year also happens to be a shooter, and that's Mass Effect. While it is an RPG like the kind that you've seen from BioWare before, where you're going to have choices that are both good and evil, and you're going to have this awesome dialogue and this really deep story with a lot of turns and surprising twists to it, you also have an actual shooter. You're not going to have a turn-based system. It's not that you have to pause the game, make choices. You're actually going to aim your reticule at enemies and just fire on the fly, so you actually have to have skill with it too. If you're one of those kind of people that doesn't want an RPG, you can go for a more traditional shooter, and that would be something like the Orange Box. The Orange Box takes 5 great games and it throws them all into one package for the normal price of $59.99. Now, in the Orange Box, you're going to get Half-Life 2, one of the greatest first-person shooters of all time. You're going to get the follow-up, Half-Life 2 Episode 1, which has never been released on a console. You get the brand new Half-Life 2 Episode 2, which is actually the best of all the Half-Life series. And you're going to get Portal, which is a really awesome, inventive 3D live-action puzzle game. And then on top of all that, you get a great multiplayer game in Team Fortress 2. All those games, one box.
So what else?
I guess you could pick up this little-known title called Halo 3. Yeah, Halo 3 is the uber massive release for the 360, and it's the end of the trilogy for Bungie. So it has a cool single-player mode where you actually get to play, you can play 4-player co-op, offline and online. On top of that, you also get this awesome multiplayer, and plus you get a level editor called The Forge, which is actually, you can actually play games while you're editing levels at the same time. And on top of that, the mind-blowing thing is the replay system, where any single-player level you play, any match you play on multiplayer, all gets saved, and you can go in and replay it and stop the camera and move the camera around.
I got to admit, I'm totally over the Halo franchise. I'm looking for more of a realistic...
What?
Yeah, I know, right? I'm looking for more of a realistic shooter. I just said like the worst thing ever. But I don't care. I'm looking for a more realistic shooter, which is exactly why I picked up Call of Duty 4.
Yeah, I mean, you really can't go wrong picking Call of Duty 4 over Halo 3. Everyone's going to have their choice. And Call of Duty 4 is Infinity Ward, the guys that made the original Medal of Honor series, and they made the first 2 Call of Duties. This is a game that's set in the here and now with modern weaponry. Everything's really intense. It's got this really great storyline in the single player that's got these great twists to it, and they do things that you would never expect them to do. And then on top of that, you have this multiplayer that's 18 players online. And it's got this really cool, persistent RPG system. If you're sick of shooting aliens, you know, and you just want to shoot some Russians or something, or terrorists,
that's
or Russian
the game
terrorists,
for me.
that's the game for you.
It is the game for me. On the other side of that spectrum, a game that I originally played on my DS that I absolutely fell in love with, which I now believe you can download on Xbox Live, Puzzle Quest.
Yeah, Puzzle Quest you can download on Xbox Live for 1,200 Microsoft points, which equals $15. And, you know, that's really for people who want an authentic Dungeons and Dragons shooter. You know, they finally got that. And
Dungeons and Dragons shooter.
And this is also actually...
But it works.
This is also an RPG, so we're getting a lot of RPG elements in our games. This is an RPG that also has puzzle elements to it. The puzzle part sort of looks a little bit like Bejeweled, but it's a lot more detailed and more interesting than that. You basically get little powers that you can use when you're destroying your blocks, and you also have the guys you're fighting, like when you're fighting an ogre, they'll have spells that they can cast, so you have to worry about destroying blocks that earn you certain kinds of mana that you can use to cast spells. For $15, it's a great deal because this game actually is like 40 hours long, and you'll almost want to play all 40 hours nonstop.
Now, moving on to a game that actually physically caused me to get into my car, drive over to the nearest, I believe it was Toys R Us, and physically fight this big nerd in my way to get it because they had sold it before it was supposed to have its street date, and that would be BioShock.
Yeah, BioShock is yet another shooter on the 360, but this is a one that, they get rid of the multiplayer, forget about multiplayer, but it's, a 15-hour single-player experience where you're dropped into this world, this dystopian world, where they've kind of had this perfect place underwater that has actually called Rapture, and has actually become defunct. And as you land in Rapture, you have to kind of uncover the reasons of why this place has gone to pot. You could say this is definitely one of the most literary of all game stories, where it's actually got qualities that people could debate, and it kind of becomes sort of an action movie towards the end, but for a good portion of the game, it actually has a lot of substance to it, which is something that we haven't seen too much of in games. So yeah, absolutely, BioShock is one of those games where you can just sit in a dark room and just get absorbed in for an entire weekend.
All great titles, all I fully support adding to your collection. What other games do you feel is worth mentioning that will help round out our wish list?
Yeah, there are a few other good games that are worth picking up. If you like sports, NHL 08 from EA is actually a really great hockey game. You can also get Skate, which is the ultimate alternative to Tony Hawk. It's just completely based in real physics, and it's just sort of like a layabout, skate when you want kind of game. We also have Guitar Hero 3, which, as we all know, which is the third one in the series. That's why it's called Guitar Hero 3 and not Guitar Hero 4. And we have Rock Band, which is from Harmonix, the guys who did the first two Guitar Hero games, and this is the one that lets you do, guitar, bass, sing, or play the drums.
All right, Hill, I know my choices, but I'm curious to know yours. Guitar Hero 3 or Rock Band?
Well, I have to say, Rock Band gives you a drum and a mic, which you don't get in Guitar Hero 3. So technically, Guitar Hero 3, you can only rock out with half your out. So I got to give it up for Rock Band.
Or jam out with half your out.
Exactly. That's how I jam. With only half my
And me
Wait.
with only half my